Like I said, master of many licks and riffs. All right, welcome to episode 4 of my journey, my adventure to going from being a 40-year beginner to an advanced guitar player. We're still inside the boxes. We've been doing the pentatonic patterns, 1 through 5, right? Trying to get a focus on 2, 3, 4, and 5, which are ones that I'm less familiar with, and I think some of you guys are as well. But what we're going to do for today is we're going to talk about a little bit of a change in the way that we're practicing those boxes. So up to this point, we've been doing from the low string up to the high notes and then back up to the low, right? So we always start our pattern at the top here. And then we play back up. And there's one little problem with this, because if we're practicing each of our shapes from the top of the guitar down to the higher notes, or up to the higher notes, really what we're ingraining in our memory is where to start from the low E string. In other words, we're getting a really good sense of exactly where we need to be if we want to start any shape position, but we want to start on the low E. Well, if you think about it, a lot of the stuff that we do soloing and lick-wise is actually on the higher strings. You rarely will hear a solo start from up here, but very often you'll hear them start down in the higher range. So we want to also make sure that we're working on our memory from starting on the high strings. So this week what we're going to focus on is, instead of starting on the low E, starting on the high E and working our way back down to the lower notes, and then we can swing around and come back up and go to the high notes. So for this week's pattern boxes, we'll do things like but because we're starting on the high string, we're going to start realizing and memorizing where to start that pattern from if we're starting on the high end of things. Now the cool thing with the guitar, right, is that the top and the bottom string are both an E. So a little while ago we talked about practicing the pentatonic scale on one string on the low E, right? And if we're still doing that, hopefully you are, I am, then we already know where the positions are down here, because we've already worked on it on the low side. And that's the beauty of the guitar, that we get sort of doubling, and that also comes into play with our fretboard, right? Because if we know the open strings here, we also know them at the 12th fret. So that's something that definitely take advantage of, is knowing that this high E string is just 2 octaves higher than the low E string. So it's really easy to know where to start, because you're doing the exact same, you know what I mean? So even though the pattern is different upside down, it still starts with those same 2 notes, right? No matter which pattern we're going for, if we're going in pattern 2, well, it's going to be the same thing on the high E. So just remember that as you're instituting this, that don't panic and think, oh gosh, now I got to remember where I'm going to be, or figure out where I'm going to be again for starting this moving down in the pitch as opposed to up in the pitch. We actually don't, because you do know where to start, but you may not remember the pattern upside down. You're going to find this week interesting, because even though you know to start 2 here, do you know what the next part is? And so, you know, by memorizing the upside down as well, even though we've done it a million times, and so we know then to go, you know, But if we're not in that sort of move of going from the low to the high and then back up again, maybe we forget what the pattern is. You jump right to 3 and you're like, how does 3 go again? It takes a minute to kind of remember the upside down of the pattern. So we want to spend this week and we just want to practice it going from the high strings upward. I think you'll find that very helpful. At the same time, we want to go ahead and interject doing what we were doing last week, which is to say the scale degrees while you're doing it. And you might find that a little bit tough as well, because even though they're still the same on that high E, right? Those first ones, but then as soon as you start going backward up, it just kind of feels awkward. So it'll be good to do this practice to sort of invert yourself, if you will. The other thing, I always like to do a bonus credit thing. What I was tinkering with this week is also only doing part of the pentatonic minor scale, and that is from the root note to the next octave up of the root note. So in other words, in pattern 1, it would be, instead of going, I'm going to go, and then stop there. Now, that's in addition to the practice that we were just talking about, because obviously we want to do the entire pattern box, but we also really want to ingrain in ourselves that root in each pattern. Remember, we're trying to find that root in each pattern and know exactly where it is, know how to start and end right on the root. And the main reason for this is because everything that we're doing with solos and licks and stuff is going to focus or, centralize itself around that root note. If we're in the key of G, or if we're in the key of G minor, we want to stay focused around that root of G. And so to do that, we're going to practice that in each box, and you're going to see how tough it is, because if you're like me and you don't exactly remember where the root note is everywhere up the fretboard, this is going to be a fun exercise for you, because you're going to go to like the third one and go, where's that root again? And you're going to have to actually track it down before you finally get to the point where and this is where the aural part of our practice is going to come into big play, right? Because that's when it's going to tell us. I just know, not because I memorized 3 has the root here, right? But because I had it in my ear. I knew this is the root. So now I know. Now I know where to go root to root in 3 because of my ear. That's the magic of what we're doing here by teaching ourselves all of this stuff in like our visual way, the physical way, and also with our hearing. And by adding to our hearing, we're going to be able to do that. So our extra credit this week is going to be, after we do our regular practice, doing smaller patterns from root to root in each of the positions. One thing that I really want to mention is making sure that you have your guitar in tune at all times when we're doing this practice. Remember, a big part of this is building up that hearing and everything. And so you just want to make sure that you use a tuner, or there's tuner apps on your mobile phone too, or whatever. And you just make sure that your guitar is perfectly in tune, because the sounds that we're ingraining in our heads, we kind of want to know those intervals and everything. We need to know exactly where they are and what they sound like, and we can't accomplish that if we're not in tune. This week for our challenge, we're also going to do note names. So in the previous one, we did scale degrees and also sang those scale degrees. We want to continue doing that until we've really mastered what those scale degrees are, and also the pitch of singing the note associated with that scale degree. But this week we want to add something in. We also want to add in naming the note names. And that's going to be pretty tough at first. I mean, at least it is for me, because I know from the major scale, it's pretty easy, especially like the key of G has just one sharp, F sharp, right? But because we're in the minor, now we've got some added, and also we're skipping some of the major scale notes, right? The 2 and the 6. So we have to kind of remember where we are and stuff, so it's going to take a little bit of work, but you definitely want to also master that, and that's going to help us with not only memorization of the fretboard, but also always knowing what note we're on no matter what box we're in. So this week, along with doing your scale practice, sing in the note name, the pitch level of the note name, and just do that with your practice. And I promise you that is going to make a big difference. Just like I just proved to you, just by showing that I was able to find G pretty much instantly with my ear. It's already working. It's already gotten to the point. Once I hear, I don't have perfect pitch, so I can't like just sing a G without hearing it. But once I hear that G up here, right, I always know where there's a G because we've already got it ingrained in our mind, at least on the E string, right? And once you have that, you know that your 2 strings up and 2 frets up is going to be the same thing, except for when the B string is in play, but you know what I mean. So we also know another spot for the G, but now that we know that G and where it is, and we associate hearing that G, we can instantly find it, even if we're off of it. If we're near it, our ear will take us to it. So that's kind of a cool thing, and that's going to be really helpful for this week's assignment. So definitely comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking of this stuff so far. Are you progressing too with me and everything? Is there anything that you're doing different or that you would do different or something? Because I have an open mind, and I'm definitely open to whatever you guys are doing too, and whatever ideas and thoughts that you have. But I also want to hear like the good and the bad of what's happening with your journey of going from either beginner or intermediate to an advanced guitarist. And let's stick with this together. Let's hold each other accountable. Also throw that into the comments, like make sure that you and I are holding each other accountable with becoming advanced guitarists. Because if we keep doing this, if we keep every single week, doing this stuff together, we are going to master the guitar. Let's do that. Please like and subscribe, and also share this with your friends that are also interested in getting better at the guitar. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later.